Have you ever felt like God was distant, like he was hiding from you when you needed him most? Maybe you've been through seasons where the silence felt heavy and you wondered why he wasn't showing up in ways you could see or feel. If you've experienced this, you're not alone, and today I want to tell you, God hides for a reason. He's not hiding to punish you or to play games with you. No, he's hiding because he has something powerful in store for you. When God seems to be hidden, it's an invitation to trust, to seek, and to grow deeper in our relationship with him. You see, the hiddenness of God isn't the absence of God. It's a unique way he uses to prepare us, shape us, and lead us into the fullness of his purpose. Throughout history, God has often chosen to reveal himself at just the right time. But until that time comes, he uses these hidden seasons to draw us closer. So if you're in a place where it feels like God is hiding, I encourage you to stay with me today. Because by the end of this message, I believe you'll have a fresh perspective on his hiddenness, and you'll see how he's working behind the scenes for your ultimate good. Main message. Sometimes we think that if we can't see God or feel his presence, it means he's not there. But God's hiddenness is often a sign that he's about to do something new in our lives. In the Bible, we see examples of this over and over again. Abraham had to trust God without knowing the exact plan. Moses waited in the desert before encountering God in the burning bush. And Jesus himself often withdrew to quiet places, seeming hidden, yet preparing for the most profound acts of love and sacrifice. When God hides, he is working behind the scenes in ways we may not understand immediately. It's in these moments of hiddenness that we learn to rely not on what we see, but on who he is. We learn to stand on his promises, trusting that his word will never fail. Perhaps you're in a place today where you're waiting for God to show up, where you feel like he's hiding from you. But let me assure you, he hasn't left you. He's preparing something beyond what you can imagine. And in his perfect timing, he will reveal his purpose. Until then, hold on to his word, seek him earnestly, and know that his hiddenness is a sign of his great work within you. God hides for a reason, and it's always for your good. Stay the course, trust in him, and get ready, because the best is yet to come. Sometimes it feels like God is far away, hiding himself from us, and that can be frustrating, especially when we're searching for answers. But when God conceals himself, it's not because he's uninterested or uninvolved. He hides to draw us closer to him. Just as a parent might play a game of hide and seek with their child, God wants us to search for him with our whole heart. This pursuit helps us grow and deepens our relationship with him. God's hiddenness is actually an invitation to intimacy. He wants us to move beyond surface level faith, to go deeper and discover more of who he is. When we can't find him easily, it often means he's inviting us to seek him in new ways, to learn to hear his voice more clearly, and to trust him even when we don't feel his presence. The truth is, God never truly leaves us. He's always there, watching, guiding, and waiting for us to seek him with a renewed passion. So while it may seem like he's hiding, remember that he's always near. He's drawing you into a closer relationship where you can experience the richness of his presence in ways you never have before. When you start to see God's hiddenness as an invitation rather than an absence, it transforms your experience. It becomes a journey to discover him in deeper ways, building a stronger, more unshakable faith. In seasons where God feels hidden, he's often at work, refining us in ways we may not immediately recognize. These times of hiddenness are not to push us away, but to develop within us a stronger, more resilient faith. It's during these moments that we're given the opportunity to grow, to be tested, and to let our faith mature beyond the surface. When God chooses to conceal himself, it can feel unsettling. We wonder why he doesn't just reveal his plan or presence to reassure us. But think about a goldsmith refining gold. It's placed in the fire, its impurities burned away so it can emerge purer and stronger. Likewise, God refines us in his timing, using the hidden seasons to strip away our doubts, fears, and reliance on what we see. We learn to trust in his promises, not because everything is clear, but because we believe he is faithful even in the silence. In these times, he teaches us patience and perseverance. We become more aware of our dependence on him, our need to lean on his understanding and not our own. We grow as he molds us, knowing that when he finally reveals himself, we'll be prepared to walk into the plans he's laid out, refined and strengthened by his careful, loving hand. When God seems hidden, it's not because he has left us, but rather because he wants to ignite a deeper passion within us to seek him. His hiddenness is a profound invitation to pursue him wholeheartedly, even when it feels like we're moving in the dark. During these times, we are invited to look beyond our circumstances and to draw closer, learning to trust in his goodness without needing immediate answers. In seeking him with a passionate heart, we often discover a side of God we might have missed in the everyday routine. These moments drive us to pray more earnestly, search the scriptures with fresh eyes, and quiet our hearts to hear his gentle whispers. The beauty of seeking him when he is hidden is that our relationship with God becomes more personal and intimate. We become like the psalmist who said, "As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs for you." This longing changes us, cultivating a faith that goes beyond emotions and circumstances, grounded in the very essence of who God is. By drawing us in this way, God prepares us to recognize his presence even when it feels obscured. And through this pursuit, we learn that the journey to find him brings us closer to his heart. And we are transformed by the closeness we find when we reach beyond what is visible. When God hides, it's often because he is preparing us for something far greater than we can currently comprehend. Think about it. In the quiet moments when it feels like God is nowhere to be found, he is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events and aligning circumstances to fulfill his purpose in our lives. God is a master planner. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end, and his perspective reaches far beyond our immediate understanding. During these times of hiddenness, he is laying the groundwork for something extraordinary, something that will ultimately shape our lives and our faith in ways we never imagined. These seasons often feel uncomfortable because we're conditioned to crave instant answers and visible progress. But in God's economy, hiddenness is part of his divine preparation process. Think of Joseph in the Bible. For years, he endured hardship, betrayal, and isolation, all while God seemed hidden. But behind the scenes, God was preparing Joseph to rise to a position of influence that would save nations. God was molding his character, strengthening his resilience, and deepening his faith so that when the appointed time came, Joseph was ready not only to endure the position of power, but to wield it with wisdom and grace. When God is hidden, he is often removing distractions, allowing us to face ourselves and drawing us closer to him. He's training us to trust in his timing and his promises. We may not see the full picture, but he is working with purpose. Like a potter who spins the wheel, shaping clay into a masterpiece, God uses these hidden seasons to mold us, to refine our hearts, and to align our desires with his will. We may not understand every twist and turn, but we can trust that he is preparing us for something that aligns with his perfect plan. So, if you're in a season where God seems hidden, take heart. It doesn't mean he's forgotten you or left you behind. Rather, it means he is crafting something specifically for you, a chapter in your story that will make sense in his time. When we feel the most hidden, God is often doing his most profound work within us. He is setting the stage for a revelation that will not only bring us closer to him, but will also testify to others about his faithfulness. He is preparing us to step into a season of purpose and blessing that will leave no doubt that he was with us all along. The hiddenness then becomes a place of growth, a place where faith is deepened, and a place where God's plans are nurtured until they are ready to bloom. This process can feel like a long wait, but remember, every moment is an opportunity for God to prepare you for what's next. Every hidden season is a season of growth, and every step taken in faith during this time strengthens the foundation on which God will build something beautiful. As you wait, let hope arise within you, knowing that the God who seems hidden now is the same God who will be gloriously revealed in your life in due time. He hides not to keep good things from us, but to prepare us for the fullness of his blessings and purposes, which he will bring to pass in ways that far exceed our expectations. When we can't feel God's presence or see his hand at work, it's easy to assume he's absent. But just because you can't see him doesn't mean he isn't working. God is always active, often orchestrating things behind the scenes, aligning events, and preparing the way even when we're unaware of it. Like a master artist working on a painting, he often covers parts of the canvas while he adds details, blending colors and textures that will later reveal a breathtaking masterpiece. In these hidden seasons, God is carefully shaping our lives with precision and care. We may not notice the changes immediately, but he is at work in the unseen. Imagine a seed planted deep in the soil. It remains hidden from view as it grows roots, which are essential for its survival and eventual flourishing. The seed doesn't sprout immediately, but the unseen growth beneath the surface is crucial for the fruit it will eventually bear. Similarly, God's hidden work in our lives is foundational. It lays the groundwork for the blessings, breakthroughs, and growth we'll experience when the time is right. We often want quick answers and visible results, but God's timeline is different from ours. He's never in a hurry, and he's not bound by our limited perspective. God's hiddenness invites us to trust that his ways are higher than ours, that he knows what's best for us, and that he is doing a good work that will become clear in his perfect timing. When we can't feel or see him, he's inviting us to rely on his promises, to lean into our faith, and to trust that he's moving in ways that will bring about his purpose. Even when he is hidden, God is strategically placing pieces of our lives together, setting the stage for his plans to unfold. Our limited view may only see the waiting, the silence, or the emptiness, but God sees the whole picture. He knows how each moment fits into a larger purpose, one that will ultimately reveal his glory and our good. So when it feels like God is distant, remind yourself that he is near, actively working, and that what he's doing in secret will one day be revealed for his greater purpose. Trust that his hiddenness is a reminder that he is always with you, even when he chooses to remain unseen. He's not absent, he's simply working in ways beyond our understanding, preparing the way for what he has planned for you. It's in these unseen moments that God is often doing his deepest work, building the foundation for blessings yet to come. God's hiddenness often serves as a reminder that our relationship with him isn't based on what we see, but on faith. In these times, he calls us to step beyond our comfort zone, to rely on him even when he feels distant. Faith is about trusting God's character, his promises, and his love, even when we don't understand what he's doing. When God hides, it's as if he's teaching us to walk by faith, not by sight. He's showing us that we can rely on him even when we don't have all the answers. Just as the roots of a tree grow deeper in search of water, our faith is meant to grow deeper in seasons when God seems hidden. These periods challenge us to ask ourselves, do we trust God only when we can see his hand? Or do we trust him because we know who he is? Faith stretches us to believe that God's goodness is constant, even when his presence isn't obvious. It's in these moments that we learn the strength of our faith as we're called to lean into his promises and rest in his unchanging nature. God's hiddenness builds in us a faith that is resilient, one that can withstand the storms of life and the uncertainties of the future. He's developing in us a dependency on him that goes beyond what we can see or feel. When we don't have all the answers, we're invited to cling to the truths we do know, that God is faithful, that he is good, and that he will never leave or forsake us. These truths become our anchor, keeping us grounded even when we feel like we're navigating uncharted waters. Through this process, God transforms our faith from something shallow to something profound and steadfast. We become people who are not easily shaken, whose confidence in God isn't tied to circumstances, but is rooted in a deep and abiding trust. This is the kind of faith that not only carries us through the hidden seasons, but also draws others to God as they see his peace and strength reflected in us. God's hiddenness then becomes a tool to cultivate a faith that is alive, active, and fully trusting in his unseen work in our lives. When God hides, he is often inviting us into a deeper place of stillness and reflection. In our busy, fast-paced lives, it can be easy to overlook the quiet, sacred moments where we can truly connect with him. God's hiddenness sometimes serves as a divine pause, calling us to slow down, be still, and listen more closely. It's in these quiet spaces that we often hear his voice the clearest and gain insights that would otherwise be drowned out by the noise of everyday life. Stillness allows us to refocus, to let go of distractions, and to be present with God. When we stop striving and simply sit in his presence, we find that the silence is not empty, it's filled with his peace, his love, and his guidance. God uses these moments to realign our hearts with his, to remind us of what truly matters, and to draw us back into a place of rest. It's in the stillness that we can truly sense his closeness, even when he remains hidden from our physical view. In these quiet times, we're reminded that our value and purpose don't come from what we do, but from who we are in him. God calls us to find our identity in his love, to know that we are cherished not for our accomplishments, but simply because we belong to him. When God hides, it's often a nudge to withdraw from the busyness and to find him in the quiet. This process refines our spiritual sensitivity, helping us to hear his whispers, feel his nudges, and recognize his subtle guidance. By embracing stillness, we allow ourselves to be filled with God's peace, which surpasses all understanding. We learn to trust that even in silence, he is speaking, even in his hiddenness, he is near. In these moments, we gain a deeper awareness of his presence, which is always with us, guiding us and leading us into his perfect will. So if God feels hidden, it might just be his gentle invitation to step away from the noise, to sit at his feet, and to rediscover the beauty of simply being with him. When God hides, he's not distancing himself. Instead, he's preparing us to appreciate his presence on a whole new level. These seasons of perceived distance are not meant to discourage us, but to heighten our spiritual sensitivity. It's like when you step away from a familiar setting and then return with fresh eyes, you begin to notice details you never saw before. Similarly, when God hides, it can deepen our awareness of him, making us more attuned to his voice, his presence, and his subtle guidance. This process teaches us to recognize and cherish even the smallest signs of his presence. We start to find him in the ordinary moments, in a kind word, a comforting breeze, or a sudden burst of inspiration. The times when God seems hidden are often when he is closest, allowing us to learn how to sense him in ways that go beyond the obvious. It's as if he is training our spiritual eyes and ears to pick up on his cues, no matter how faint they may seem. God's hiddenness can also make us more sensitive to his leading in everyday decisions. As we grow in our ability to discern his presence, we become more attuned to his will, enabling us to walk in step with him more intentionally. This heightened sensitivity helps us to recognize his hand in our lives, even when we can't see the full picture. We begin to trust that he is guiding us with a wisdom that surpasses our own, teaching us to rely not on what we see, but on the deeper sense of his presence that we carry within us. In this way, God's hiddenness fosters a greater intimacy with him. We learn to lean into his presence, even when it feels subtle, and we develop a sense of reverence for the moments when he reveals himself in unexpected ways. This growing awareness brings a profound peace as we come to realize that he is always near, orchestrating our lives with purpose and grace. Through this, God deepens our relationship with him, teaching us to recognize his presence in both the grand and the quiet moments of our lives. When God seems hidden, he is often inviting us to seek him with greater intentionality. These seasons of hiddenness challenge us to pursue him beyond our comfort zones, to dig deeper, and to develop a hunger for his presence that isn't satisfied by a superficial connection. God wants us to desire him wholeheartedly, and sometimes he hides so that we'll seek him with our whole heart, soul, and mind. This pursuit is not about earning his presence, but about developing a relationship that is rich and fulfilling. When we choose to seek him earnestly, we find that our relationship with him transforms. We go from merely knowing about God to truly experiencing him. Seeking God in times when he feels hidden builds resilience in our faith, teaching us to value the process of knowing him as much as the moments of revelation. The The Bible tells us that when we seek God with all our heart, we will find him. This promise holds true, even when it feels like he's far away. As we search for him in prayer, in scripture, and in quiet reflection, we find that he reveals himself in ways we may not have anticipated. We begin to notice his fingerprints all around us in the peace we feel, in the wisdom that comes unexpectedly, and in the assurance that he is guiding us every step of the way. God's hiddenness is an invitation to deepen our commitment to him, to seek him not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to know him more. As we seek, he draws us closer, transforming us in the process. The journey of seeking God refines us, purifies our intentions, and aligns our hearts with his. And when we find him, our relationship is stronger, our faith is more resilient, and our trust in him is unshakable. God hides not to frustrate us, but to draw us into a deeper, more fulfilling relationship where we learn to treasure him above all else. In times when God appears hidden, he often desires to ignite a passion for prayer within us. These seasons challenge us to come to him with an earnest heart, seeking connection, guidance, and intimacy. When we experience his silence, it can prompt us to pray more fervently, to wrestle with our doubts, and to ask questions we might have previously left unexamined. This dynamic invites us to engage in a dialogue with God that is rich and meaningful, where we can express our fears, desires, and longing for his presence. God uses these moments to deepen our prayer life, teaching us that prayer is not merely about asking for things, but about cultivating a relationship. In prayer, we find the space to pour out our hearts, to listen for his voice, and to align our will with his. The act of seeking him in prayer reinforces our reliance on him and helps us to remember that he is sovereign, even when we don't see the evidence of his working. As we press into prayer, we develop a deeper understanding of his character and his ways. God often reveals insights, comfort, and direction that we would have missed if we had not sought him earnestly. It's in the act of praying, especially during those times when we feel distant, that we discover the power of intercession, gratitude, and worship. We learn that prayer can be a lifeline that connects us to the heart of God. And we experience the joy of knowing that our requests, struggles, and praises matter to him. Moreover, prayer nurtures our faith. When we pray, we practice dependence on God, recognizing that we cannot navigate life's complexities alone. In our hidden seasons, prayer can shift our focus from our circumstances to God's eternal perspective. It reminds us of his faithfulness and invites us to trust him with our uncertainties. Ultimately, God's hiddenness compels us to seek him through prayer, creating an opportunity for growth in our spiritual journey. The more we pursue him, the more we cultivate a prayerful attitude that transforms our hearts, minds, and lives. As we navigate these challenging times, we find that our prayers become a source of strength, comfort, and clarity, allowing us to experience his presence in profound ways, even when he feels hidden. God's desire is for us to draw near to him, knowing that in our pursuit, we will discover the depth of his love and the fullness of his presence.